So, to understand the Sua swipe, you first need to understand what a Gumby is and what a Rise is. So a Gumby is just an outside twist and cartwheel, and a Rise is just a no-handed version of that. So a Rise is to a Gumby what an aerial is to a cartwheel. So normally when people do their aerials, it looks like the cartwheel in terms of how their body is positioned. However, it's a little different when people do Rise. If you look at this, for example, he's sideways like it's a B-twist. He's flat spinning. If you look at here, he doesn't actually invert properly, quote unquote. His head and his hips are at the same level, like in a B kick, like in a B twist, like in a spider twist, all that stuff. Notice how it doesn't look like he can put his hands down, like in a Gumby. Now do keep in mind that this isn't necessarily wrong. This is how they do it in capoeira as well. Now, here's another Rise by Brendan Morrison, the Ice Lord. This is from his YouTube channel and this is from his tutorials. You can see how he's kind of doing it to the side. This is a carry through Gumby. This is done by Ashley Cash Money. Just notice her body position, how inverted she is, how her hips are directly over her head. Look at her body position and then compare it to Brendan's body position. Notice how it doesn't look like he can put his hands down. Doing a Rise to the side definitely has its purposes. It's a lot easier to do and it's a lot easier to combo into, and to some degree it's even easier to combo out of. These off-axis variations transfer all the way up the Rise chain. This is Juji Mufu doing a side swipe and it's done like a lean back 540. This is Jefferson Lewis doing a snappy swipe and it's done like a lean back 540 gyro. These variations are treated like cheat kicks and not like a Gumby variation. That's why we have something called the Sua swipe. This is Alex Hunter. Notice how he's going directly over his head, just like Ashley Cash Money did in her Gumby. This is Mike Guthrie doing the same exact thing. Notice that when he inverts, it looks like he can put his hands down like in a Gumby. This makes it a Sua swipe and not a side swipe. This is what makes this variation so special. You're doing a Rise variation on its true Gumby-like axis. Obviously, you can't really use this variation for two-handed Gumby moves because the inversion is already implied. This is Ashley again doing a Rise swing dub, which is pretty crazy on its own. But see how she's inverting fully. It looks like she could put her hands down, and if she did, it would become a Gumby. Now on the left, you'll see Brendan Morrison doing his Rise on his dark side. Now I flipped it so he would be tricking on the same side that I do. Most people would still call this a Rise and not a Sua Rise, as the variation normally only applies to higher level tricks. But in my opinion, I think it makes sense to apply it because it helps us differentiate between the levels of inversion in a Rise. Here's a Rise twist, again by Brendan Morrison. See how he's kind of sideways, just like a B twist. Now here's a Sua Rise twist. Again, it's important to notice that it looks like he can put his hands down like in a regular Gumby. This is Jay Lu's snappy swipe again. This is a Sua snappy. In theory, this variation can also be applied to Sailor Moon tricks. However, I couldn't find any examples as it's not super common. However, here are some Sailor Moon tricks done by Brendan Morrison. Both of these are Sailor twists. The closest thing we have to a Sua Sailor Moon is a Sailor Moon Gumby. Now a Sailor Moon Gumby is literally a Gumby with that first hand, and you ride it all the way across rather than slapping the ground. But the Gumby in Sailor Gumby already implies inversion. It's also possible to do this variation on Touchdown Rise and other tricks similar. This is Alexander Anderson doing a Touchdown Rise into this cork snappy swipe thing. Now you can see that he doesn't invert fully, and if he were not to put his hand down, it would kind of look like a regular Rise. So you could call this a regular Touchdown Rise. Now this is Mike Guthrie doing a quad full out of a Touchdown Rise punch. Now you could technically call this a Sua Touchdown Rise punch, as he inverts fully, and it looks like he can put that other hand down. Same thing here, this is trick bonus, and you can see that his hips are directly over his head. This is Bailey Payne doing a touchdown swipe. Now you can see it's really off to the side and it looks like a regular side swipe. This I would call a touchdown suicide swipe. Some may say that the touchdown already implies inversion. Personally, I would agree. However, this is just a nice way, again, to differentiate between the levels of inversion during these Raiz tricks. There are a couple more things to address. First is that this does not apply to full snapu or cork snapu. This only applies to Raiz variations. There is a possibility, though, that this could be used for spider variations. However, I'll talk about that in another video. Another thing is that some may consider a suicide swipe to be like a flash kick, sort of like how we have Grandmaster swipe and Grandmaster flash. In my opinion, it makes more sense just to stick with using swipe and not confuse flashes into this, because a suicide swipe doesn't necessarily have to be fully inverted. It just has to be within that 45 degrees of acceptability. That being said, I'm not dismissing the idea at all. I might explore it sometime in a later video, but for now, let's just call everything swipes. So anyways, that's all I have for today. Hopefully you guys learned something. I'd love to see people play with this variation more often. It's very underused. If you have any questions or ideas, please leave a comment down below. I'd love to read whatever you guys have to say. Also, please like and subscribe, and share this video among your other trickers.